Hey everybody, happy Friday again. It's Ted. Look, I'm gonna move this just a teeny bit. People always say you have to have your whole body in it, Ted. You can't have a shoulder out here. I am excited to have Sanjana Mathur on the show. I've had to practice that in my brain for the past 10 minutes. We serve together on the UNICEF board. She is just an amazing human being. I love her story. She is nervous to be on here, so I hope you guys are really kind and sweet. I don't know why she's nervous. She's beautiful. She's friendly. She's got a great story. And then let us know. Amanda's on. Hey guys, Nesper's on. You guys let us know that you can hear us and see us, because that's always my most important thing. I would hate for anybody to miss your story, because you have a great one. If you've read her bio today, you know she has a lot going on for such a young lady, and you are young. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you.
And she's a newlywed too. November. She's newly married.
Not like Ted, who's
27 years today. 27 years.
Wow.
My God, I want to say I'm a saint, but that'll get me in trouble. My wife's a saint. You can hear us. Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it. Hey, Susie. All right, so give us a little bit of background on you. Your bio, I know you were even nervous about writing your bio. Your bio was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's the story. That's what we try to do on the show. We try to really share stories, and you have an amazing story, I think. Thank you. So tell them a little bit about you.
Well, I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm an island girl. I was born in London. My father was studying. He was Indian. He's directly from India. My mother was Trinidadian. And they met. She was a flight attendant, and they met on flights back and forth. So it was
cool
nice.
Is that?
Yeah. And well, I grew up, but I lived in Trinidad my whole life. So through and through, I'm a Trini girl.
A Trini girl.
I am a Trini girl.
Is that what we say? Trini girl.
A Trini girl.
I've been there. The cruise ship stop there, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I've been. It's absolutely stunning.
It's
beautiful.
Stunning.
The water is amazing.
Yes, Trinidad is lovely, and I became. Where should I go?
Start. Tell us a little bit, because you lost both of your parents at a relatively young age.
Yes.
And share some of that,
Sure.
and that obviously sets the tone for the rest of your. You know, that's a huge impact. You lost your mom, I think, 14, if I remember.
15 when I lost my mom. I wasn't living with my parents for most of my life, because it was once I was born, they were like, my dad was studying in London, and they were seeing about my sister, and they just couldn't afford to take care of the both of us, so I was sent to my grandmother's house in Trinidad, and she took care of me until I was 16.
Okay, so then was it as difficult of obviously when your parents passed, that's very painful.
It was. I was still very close to them. My mom died very suddenly. She actually died the year my father got diagnosed with colorectal cancer. We were all focused on him being diagnosed, and then she had an asthma attack and she left us. It was very sudden.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Reading through that, I mean, that's traumatic. So that sets the path for what happens next, right? And Jan Edwards says hi.
Hi, Jan. I love Jan.
We love Jan.
We love Jan.
We do.
Yeah, so I think it makes you become very independent, because, by the time I was 21, I had already lost my mother, I had lost my father, but I was applying for medical school.
What made you go medical school? Did you always know you wanted to be a doctor?
To be a doctor.
Okay.
Actually, I live with my grandfather, and he told me at 4 I was going to be a doctor, and I was like, oh, okay, that's just how it's gonna be. I have prescriptions that I used to write when I was like 5-6 years old.
I love that. That happens a lot. When people come on the show, they talk about that 4 to 6 range, when somebody instilled something in them and it stuck with them. And that's amazing that you went through it. Then you went and you got your medical degree from, you were in Trinidad.
Yeah, so when my dad got diagnosed, right after my mom passed away, I went to live with him. We had not lived with each other our entire lives, so we were learning each other. And for that 4 years, that's when he had to battle with his cancer, because he got diagnosed at stage 4. He was 40 years old.
Wow.
He went to the gym 3 times a week. He ate. He never smoked. He never drank. He went in just for a checkup. He had mets in his lungs.
That's just heartbreaking. Were there any signs
Nothing.
prior to?
Absolutely.
That's the scary part about colon cancer. I feel like there are no real signs at all.
And that's why it's important to get screened. You have to.
So it's interesting. So I'm when I turned 50. Okay, so right now I should probably be screened, but it's funny because the medical community started to push back on that and make the age a little higher.
Yes.
So my doctor actually asked me, do you have any signs or symptoms? And I said, no, I don't have a history of it.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if that's just a bad thing. Is it because the exam itself or the actual test itself also has inherent risks?
Not necessarily. Sometimes the tumor could be so small, you miss it.
Right.
You just have to keep screening. And for people who, like me, have a first-degree parent, I have to start 10 years before. I'm 30 and I need to screen now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's not as crazy as you think it is. My wife, her biological mom died at 37 of colon cancer, and so she's, thank God we found that out, but she's had to be tested at a very young age just because of that, because of the history, and you just don't know. You just don't know.
And, so at 16 I had to move in with my dad, who has now become a single parent to 2 teenage girls. And in that time, I feel like that was just a defining moment in my life, because here I was scared of him. I didn't know him. And I was studying for my grades, because in Trinidad, you don't have to do an undergraduate. You can go straight into medical school right after high school.
Wow.
So, so I was studying to become a doctor, and he got so ill, that's when the chemo started. And my dad was the CEO of like a huge company in Trinidad and Tobago. And you just saw how cancer crushes you as a person. And it was really heartbreaking that in that time, that's the time we had together. And I was 16 years old, and I was taking care of my dad post chemo with my sister and the rest of my family. Thankfully, we have amazing family support.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we have amazing family support. We're very close. But most days, I stayed home from work. I stayed home from school, and I took care of him. I cleaned him up. And I still remember, I would say, "Daddy, do you need anything?" And he would say, "Cyanide, please."
Oh my gosh.
It was awful.
Well, because he is just, all cancer is miserable. I hate it. It's one of the reasons why I love to raise money for anything that's cancer research related. But you're suffering in a way that you can't paint unless you have been in it or known someone who's gone through it.
It's terrible to go through. We tried everything. My grandfather reached out to holistic therapy in India and took him there, and I remember he came back with this huge suitcase of medications that I still smell.
Oh, the smell. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, but in that time we learned each other. And it was like I feel like I matured like 20 years in that time.
So it's a painful gift is what you had.
I came out, a lot older than when I went into it.
And you had time with him, but it was clouded.
Yeah.
But it's still time with him, and you learned a lot from that. It's 4 years he suffered through that?
4 years.
I'm sorry.
And that was right after when my mom passed away. Again, I feel like I grew up 10 years in that time.
Sure you did.
Because I was 15 and I was giving her eulogy.
Wow.
And then and then 4 years later, after my dad, I think all of that kind of cemented wanting to be a doctor, essentially. So you just want to prevent things from happening.
Sure, and that there has to be an answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people get into medicine. They want to help. There's got to be a helpful heart there.
Yes.
Even if you're in the research side of medicine.
Course.
You've got that heart of, I've got to figure out how to make a difference. I've got to figure out a cure, or at least some way to mitigate what everybody's going through when they're dealing with all of that.
I think, and it makes it hard for you. In some ways, it makes it easy because you treat everyone like, that's my dad there, that's my mom. And I remember once I had to give a cancer patient, I had to pronounce him dead, and I just couldn't face his family.
Sure, my oldest daughter is a pediatric oncology nurse. And just the stories of that's one of the reasons I love Base Camp. I'm on the board for Base Camp, which is childhood cancer awareness, and they do a lot of stuff in the hospitals.
Yes.
There is a whole, so you're not only dealing with the illness, you're dealing with all of the things that go on around it that if you're not in it, you don't realize. So if your child is, for example, in the hospital, receiving treatment, they get hospital food. There's so many limitations. They don't get to see the movies they want to see. And so lives are completely disrupted. And then think about the families who, you don't want to leave your child there overnight. You don't want to, and that's for anybody. You don't want to leave your dad or your mom or your brother there overnight, your sister. So you have to take into consideration, which you did, all of those things. It's very, it's stressful in a way that you have absolutely no idea until you have gone through it.
Yeah. And in that same breath, it's just my sister and I. So she went from being a 21-year-old on her way to law school. Now she's working to take care of me and my dad. Mm. And it was, we grew up. We grew up in that time. So right after that, I got into med school. Literally, he died New Year's Eve. And that was New Year's Eve 2006. And in 2007, I promised him. Because that night, he actually ended up in Johns Hopkins.
Wow.
And I wasn't able to go. My sister was there. She called me and she was like, I think this is the night. And I promised him. I said, Daddy, I'm going to get in. And the next year, I got into med school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was 21 years old in med.
Wow.
No, was I 21? Yeah, I was 21.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
20
so,
actually. I was 20.
What did you want to do? What did you want to do? Which medicine did you want to study?
At that time, I wanted to be a plastic surgeon.
A plastic surgeon?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I really wanted to be a plastic surgeon.
I need some of this sucked out. My cheeks are a little big on the camera.
When I love that age, because you feel like you can do anything.
Sure.
You're like, I'm going to be a plastic surgeon.
You're fearless.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that about that age group. You're right, because they can do anything, especially your age group, because you're technically millennial, and I hate to throw that word around.
Sorry.
But no, millennial, I love the spirit of millennials.
Yeah.
And hey, Tony, and hey, George, by the way, I saw you, and Colleen. Millennials you guys are fearless. Like none of the restrictions that my age group or older have put on ourselves,
Yes.
and believe me, they're put on ourselves.
Yes.
We put it there.
Yeah.
You all just bypass those. You don't.
Yeah.
You may have some internal fear, but you're like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, and the thing is, I didn't get into med school when I first, I did the exams, and because my dad was really sick and I stopped going to school to take care of him, I just didn't get the grades. I did really bad. I failed chemistry, I failed physics, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the end. But then, I got back on, and I said because they kept saying, there's no, what's your plan B? What are you going to do? Are you going to, do you want to be a pharmacist?
That word.
Do you want to just, my dad was like, I'll send you to England, you can do psychology. I was like, there is no plan B. There's no plan B.
That's good. Well, you don't have to have one. Colleen, I appreciate you sharing. She says, my father-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer last year and is now cancer-free and never had chemo or radiation thanks to the new immunotherapy treatment.
Yes. Well, no, I think, that was 15 years,
they're making so much progress.
Ago.
It doesn't mean, like, there's always research going on.
Yes.
That's why a lot of people get caught up in the, what are the salaries of XYZ company but they're still doing research. This isn't fake. So support all of your local, anything that's important to you as far as diseases that have touched you. Cancer's such a big one.
Yes.
Go out and do something with them.
Yes.
Anyway, so I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
It's
not
just,
at all.
I wanted to read what she said. I love it. She shared that.
In med school is where I guess I slowed down a little bit, and I just tried to do my best and get it through. I was a 20-year-old in medical school, and I graduated on my first try. I was 24 when I graduated. But at that time, I think, my sister and I are now looking for stability, and we want a family, and we just want to settle down. And I got married right out of med school. Just right out of med school, I got married to who was my best friend at the time, because you want a promise of stability, and you think, okay, now I can finally start my life. And
well, they had obviously been through it with you. Were they also?
I met him after.
Okay.
But I got through medical school with his support, and I think you begin to think that you have this obligation to this person, and
I think a lot of people get into relationships and marriages over an obligation.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, which is sad, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's almost like it's settling. I hate to say that because I'm not trying to minimize that you had the feeling, but you're doing it out of duty rather than out of love and passion and compassion.
But you think, at that time, no one could have stopped me.
Right.
I thought I was doing it, and I was going to settle down. The kick with that is that he was an extremely religious person. And so my life made a 180. So I went from being this carefree, young 20-something-year-old who loved traveling, who loved, having a nice glass of wine, to being a complete strict vegetarian, no alcohol, and just praying like nonstop.
So I'm always and if it's okay, I'll ask you this. So you told me I could ask anything.
Of course.
I'm fascinated by that because you're not the only one that does that. So you all of a sudden you change your life. Did you know going into it that he was like that, and
I
you
did.
just? And then do you think that you were going to change him? Or did you think that he would not try to change you? How does that work?
I thought we could come to a middle ground.
I got you.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, I'm big into traveling. It's fine. Alcohol, meat, stuff like that, it's not. And when you're praying, that can't be bad, right? That's a good thing. And they're very, very stable. But the trouble with that is he was not the nicest person to me.
On top of it all.
Yeah. So after a while, I think what happened was I got into a very, very bad accident. So, and now anyone looking in from the outside can see that I was a surgeon, I was married, you know, he was going to be a neurosurgeon, I was going to be a plastic surgeon, and it sounds really lovely.
Right.
And then sometimes you just get sucked into that vortex where you think, all right, you know what, maybe everyone thinks it's okay, it's not that bad. But it's only when you're driving and you get into an accident and you think, why bother to hold on to the wheel?
Well, correct. That's sad.
Then you're like, what am I doing with my life? I work 7 days a week and I'm literally on the way to the temple to pray. Wow. And here I am spiraling through the air and everything slows down. And that's when you realize, I'm not happy. Yeah.
Well, you take a real good look at your life when your life's threatened like it was, and when you don't know if you're going to come out of it alive or dead.
Yeah.
And so of course you're actually going through at a very young age, which I love. You're able to redirect and reset.
Yes.
Even though it's painful, the accident's painful, you have PTSD from the accident, but it allowed you to reset your life.
Yeah. And I think that's something we all need to remember is, you know, if you're unhappy in your situation, I won't go into the details of that relationship, but basically, my family was totally against it. They were like, he's a doctor. I was like, I'm a doctor. They were like, okay, but he doesn't beat you. He's not an alcoholic. He doesn't, you know, he's not verbally abusive. I'm like, but emotional abuse is a thing.
Well, it sounded like you were, and I'm not judging, I'm just saying if I'm looking on the outside in, you were a prisoner in your own life.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I hid that part of my life. My family didn't even know.
Wow.
Because I didn't want anyone to view him in a bad way. I didn't want them to think that he was silently bullying me, but my aunt called it. She saw it. And the thing is, but if you looked on the outside, you'll see he doesn't cheat on you. He doesn't beat you. He's not an alcoholic. Why would you want to leave someone
Isn't it funny what people's... That's what they think. Okay, so he doesn't beat you, so that means it's great.
Yes.
It's not great. He doesn't cheat on you. Okay, well, he shouldn't.
Yes.
So it's so funny how they minimize that, or they make that as a positive that what he's not doing, but what they're not looking at is what he is doing, or what relationship the person you're in a relationship with is doing to you.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, there's a reason when I choose not to come home, where I'm like torn, when I'm literally fighting with most of my family, you know. So the accident happened. The car flipped 4 times.
Wow.
And that morning, when I left home, he told me, "Don't be an embarrassment and come late."
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that was the last thing I heard when I went, and then I got into the accident because I was speeding to get there in time.
Okay, so it's lovely that you're. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Jan says, guilt and shame keep people silent while enduring a sorrow-filled life. It's so true.
You know, Jan, it's so funny you should say that, because when I met the divorce lawyer, what she told me was, do not stay out of sympathy and guilt if you're thinking of going back. Yes.
Sorry I'm late. He says, Tony says he loves your accent.
Thank you.
But that is so important for you to share. I think people do stay in relationships for the wrong reasons, or there's shame in, even in this day and age, there's shame in getting out of a relationship. You're the person who's on the receiving end of whatever that is, and you still are trying to take care of the person who is doing all the stuff to you that's making you crazy.
You know, as a woman, it's even more difficult.
I can't even imagine.
Everyone was like, why are you leaving him? Like, why are you doing that? And, you know, this is how marriage is. And I was like, you know, I may be young, but I'm pretty sure this is not what marriage is supposed to be. It shouldn't be.
And a lot of people stay in marriages and relationships because that's what they're told.
Yeah.
Just like people were telling you, he doesn't hit you, he's not an alcoholic, he doesn't cheat.
Yeah.
Where are the positives?
Yes, I know.
What's the good thing there?
Yes.
So a lot of times it takes a catalyst, and a painful one, and in your case a painful physical one, to get out of to make you reset and get out of where you're at.
And that's what happened.
And so, did you have, you said you had PTSD from that.
After that accident, I mean, I've always been in control. So, you know, once a therapist told me that I always needed to have control because I didn't have a childhood. And I wouldn't, you know, there are a lot of things that happened when I was a child that took that away from me. And a therapist once said, you're always in control because you never had a childhood. And I was like, that might be true. But after an accident, my body started to do things that I didn't tell it to do. You know, I started getting panic attacks when I didn't expect that I would get one, which I never had before. I was like, oh, yeah, I just flipped a few times. I'm fine. I came out. The best thing about that is that the car was completely total, but I was scratch free.
Wow, that's a blessing.
And
that tells you you've got a gift on your life. You're supposed to do more.
Yeah, and you know, I came out and I would start retelling the story and then pass out from like a panic attack.
Wow.
And I was like, I didn't tell it to do that. Why are you doing that? And as you know, the year went on. By the end of the year, I made up my mind. I took a good hard look. I was like, okay, so this job, this is not cutting it. I want to be a doctor, but clearly surgery is taking my last bit of energy.
Sure.
And this marriage, I can't go on. And I tried. I tried for a year to make it work. I tried. And there were so many things that happened. It was almost as if God was saying, I know you're going to keep trying, but he's not going to change.
Correct. So you were still trying, even though there was a voice, whatever your beliefs are, there's a voice and a faith going, oh my God, you need to get out. It's not the right thing. No.
Yeah, so the end of the accident happened 2014 February. By December, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Good for you. Now, did you have a support system to help you
I had a very small support system.
I was going to say, so it sounds like because so many people were telling you the things that he was good at, I guess, or not so bad at, you're having to fight through that. So that actually takes even more bravery, I think.
My sister was like, I knew it. I knew what he was like. I support you. She was like, there all the way.
It's always good to have that one person behind you that really knows the truth about what's going on. Yeah. So you got out of the marriage.
Yeah, I did, and I met the most amazing person ever.
She's a newlywed, guys.
I am a newlywed.
2 months.
And he, you know, he was also coming out of a marriage as well. We were friends, and I think we both kind of acknowledged what was happening.
Sure.
You know, in terms of when someone starts being strong within themselves, it inspires other people to be strong.
Yes.
And you know, we went through it together. We were not together or anything, but I feel like after a while you do have that common ground.
You do.
And thank you, baby.
Is that your baby?
He is.
She's meant to do great things. I was just going to say, Gordon says it. That's your husband?
Yeah.
All right.
That's my
Hi,
husband,
Gordon. How are you?
Yeah, and he saved me. And it's amazing that someone could love you enough, and you loving them can make you love yourself.
Agreed. I feel bad for people that don't get that.
Yes.
Because they are stuck in their relationships, and you can't, I mean, it's not that anybody's to blame in certain circumstances, it's just some people just don't know how to do it, and then some people evolve, and then your needs change. Yes. What you want, the expectations that you have of a relationship change, and your person's stuck there because they're the same person they were. That doesn't mean that you have to stick with it, and you were courageous enough, and look, you have Gordon, and Jan says you're one of the most courageous people I know.
Let me tell you, Gordon, I don't know if you put a therapy into one person, it would be Gordon.
I love it.
He literally cured my anxiety. He would be there with me. He would talk me through it. He would encourage my dreams. You would not believe it. We were just friends when I got into that accident, but Gordon was the first one there.
It's a meant-to-be scenario, and you know that you're with the right person when you actually are feeling better, when you feel like it's very hard to let your guard down to anybody, and especially since what you have been through. Yeah. So when you can let your guard down with someone and people love and accept you, unconditional love, we throw that word around a lot, but when you actually feel it and accept it and bring it into your life, it's the most powerful thing on the planet. Yeah. It can cure everything emotionally. It really can.
I mean, I was stubborn when he met me.
I think she's probably still stubborn, Gordon, just
stubborn.
in a different way.
Yeah, but he taught me to open my eyes, and Gordon was the one who had to come up to Orlando. And when he had to come up, this was 2 years ago almost, and I was still working as a surgeon, though I was still in plastic surgery, That one I hadn't quite quit, and he had to come up, and I was like, he says, come with me. And I was like, come with you? And he goes, yeah. And I quit my job.
Wow.
My family is still in Trinidad. I took a chance on him, and I took a chance on the relationship, and I took a chance on my life. And it turned out to be the best decision I ever made.
Isn't that amazing? She took the leap, people.
I took the leap.
People are commenting on. Jan says, you and Gordon are amazing, and so does Pernell Bush.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, good people.
Yeah,
good people.
Both amazing people in their own right.
Agreed.
But yeah, and in that time, I think he and I have grown as a couple. He's doing great things. I was able to start doing all the things I always wanted to do. I spent the last year, now because I've been a doctor in Trinidad, I can't practice in the States. I took 1 year and I did all the exams that medical students in the US do in 5 years. I did it in 1.
Wow.
Yeah, and I passed it.
Wow.
And in that time, I did research with UCF. I've been doing my volunteering with UNICEF, and I've been I'm a mission ambassador for Paving the Way with Jan.
Yay!
Yeah, and all these people that I've met, Jan, Melody, all these amazing people that I've met have opened up these worlds to me. And I sit and I think to myself, I can't believe I was once almost gonna die and I never would have experienced any
Correct.
of this.
And so you had, I'm a faith person, so you had a definite intervention there,
Yeah.
a divine one.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important. I think we miss out on those a lot because we're not looking for them, or we don't have the belief that they're actually real. And you were able to take that and really do some introspective looking at what's going on in you and how you're feeling and get out of it. And if you hadn't, imagine you wouldn't have Gordon. I mean, you were friends, but how amazing is that you have met a guy, and I'm going to have to look him up now that everyone says he's amazing.
He's amazing.
I love it. So talk a little bit about UNICEF, because we're both on the local, I think it's the board. What do we call it? I'm sorry, I'm terrible about the name. We were just talking about the communication.
Let me take it from here.
Yeah, you do it, please. Yeah, I'm bad at this.
Ted and I are both part of the UNICEF Congressional Action Team of Orlando.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. And what happened was, it's so funny, Melody and I always joke because I stalked her to get on it. So she always says that she had to find everyone else, but I stalked her, and I'm like, let me in. So now I've almost been there for a year, and now Melody asked me to be a co-leader for this team.
I love it. I think it's amazing.
And I'm also a state leader for the Advocacy Day and annual summit that UNICEF is having in March in DC.
And what we primarily talk about, even though UNICEF does a lot of things, is human trafficking.
Yes.
And since Orlando is just top whatever on every list, and you don't want to think about it, and we certainly don't talk about it enough.
Because it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, but it's so prevalent here.
It is.
And it's heartbreaking. So
Florida's third in the country.
Third in the country. And Orlando's second in the state or third in the state?
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, Orlando's
nobody wants to think about it because we have all of the theme parks here, and we're known as the friendliest place on earth, and we've got beaches, and so everyone wants to glorify that, but it's actually one of the easiest places to get any kind of human trafficking done. Think about all the motels and the hotels along 192. Think about just getting into theme parks, the things that you see. I'm not picking on theme parks, but anywhere, flights, all the flights that come into Orlando. It's so prevalent that I think people just check out and they don't want to believe it.
Yeah. No, we're not number one. We're third to calls in the national trafficking hotline. I think Texas and California. California might be number one. Texas
I think
is
California
number 2.
and Texas,
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that Florida's top 3?
It's insane.
So UNICEF and some of the other, I serve on the Lifeboat Project board, which is also with Jill Cohen, human trafficking. I love Jan Edwards paving the way. I just think it's amazing all of the stuff we're doing. And as much as we're doing, and as tirelessly as we're doing it, California 1, Texas 2. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
It's still just rampant. We can't keep ahead of it. The teams that are in place to try to get ahead of it, you can't keep ahead of it. It's just so prevalent.
Yeah.
And social media certainly has a lot to do with that.
Oh, yes.
The availability of being able to buy kids and buy people online.
It's terrible. It's
horrible.
awful. And the thing that struck me, and I always tell John this, is that I was trained to be a doctor and I was trained to be a surgeon, but I was not trained as a physician to identify human trafficking.
Correct.
And the trouble is that Trinidad is huge. there's a lot of human trafficking that's been going on in Trinidad. They come through Venezuela, the Venezuelans, the Colombians, because we're right there, and they use Trinidad as a port, and then they send them off to the US or to UK or wherever. And I think once I heard John's story, it really struck me.
Yes.
And I really wanted to be a part of it. And because of that, tied into everything that UNICEF, UNICEF is UNICEF. Everything that it represents, it's amazing to be a part of something like that. And
it's a blessing, y'all. I mean, honestly, to even say that we're part of UNICEF is just such a blessing.
And I think you use what you have and you make it work for you. And because of that, because of UNICEF, I have been, if someone asks me what kind of doctor I am, I say I'm a surgeon. I did plastic surgery, neurosurgery, plastics. I'm researching neurology. I want to be an internist.
I love it.
But I've been scattered because I love every part of medicine. But because of UNICEF, I've been opened up to global health. Now I realize that's where I want to really channel my energy into global health.
Agreed.
Yeah. And there's a huge crisis happening in Burma where the Rohingya people are experiencing genocide.
Yes.
They're going all over to Bangladesh, and one of the diseases that we've pretty much eradicated, called diphtheria, is now rampant. There's a huge crisis because those poor people aren't vaccinated.
Right.
They come to Bangladesh and they're getting all these diseases that we don't even know because we've been vaccinated years and years ago.
Doesn't it feel, let me ask you, because I serve on a lot of boards, and I know we're on the UNICEF team Congressional Action Team, right?
Yes.
Maybe? Okay. I did it. That's what CAT stands for. I just got it.
Action
a little
team.
Slow, Ted, on a Friday.
Yeah, so we talk to all the reps and we meet.
Yes, we do. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people, when I talk to people and they watch the show, they're like, God, Ted, you talk about philanthropy and charities and community service all the time. Isn't it overwhelming how many problems there are, and how do we pick what to get involved with? And you're right. We sit here and we're as overwhelmed as you. Trust me. I serve on so many boards, not because I have more time in the day, but because there is so much work to be done.
Yes.
And I'm just doing what I can. And so if you just pick something that is important to you, or I've got a laundry list of charities and philanthropies you can get involved in. But don't just not get involved because it seems overwhelming.
Exactly.
Start just small. Take a step. Just say, all right, I want to get involved. I hate the thought of human trafficking.
Yes.
We can get you on a committee, working on a project. I promise you, we can get you involved in a way that makes sense for you.
Yeah, and it's important that you don't just say you're gonna do something just to say you're doing something. You have to, your heart in anything you do, your heart has to be in it. It just has to. Otherwise, everyone's gonna know.
Pete Crotty, this is live, and we're, believe it or not, so you were about to, earlier today you said, I'm nervous to go on. So we're already at 33 minutes. I let it go longer. It goes fast, right? So you were amazing. There's so much more for you to talk about, and we're going to give all of your information, your contact information.
Please get in touch.
We'll give the UNICEF information on there, taking actions from the heart. You're right, Jan. And then we're going to hashtag everything as we share it across all of our social media, and our team is going to share it too, which is such a blessing. But any parting words of wisdom for them?
I think for everyone to remember is that there are two things I want to say. One thing that I've learned to take heed of is, when you're traveling, they say, put your oxygen mask on first in the event of an emergency, and then you can take care of your children. And I've always seen that in a metaphorical light. So first things first, take care of yourself. And because I have my 80-year-old grandmother at home that I'm very guilty that I've left. I have my niece, my nephew. But if I can't put myself in a position where I can take care of them, then none of us is gonna get any better.
You're absolutely correct.
And the second thing is, if you're unhappy with where you are, move. You're not a tree. You're not a tree. And
that is so true.
I've lost my parents at a very young age. My dad, they were both 44 when they died.
Wow.
And it's amazing that they died at the same age because they were 4 years apart.
Wow.
So they died. My mom was 44 when she died, and so was my dad. Life can be taken away from you in an instant.
In a minute.
And, just like in my accident, I was very, very lucky. Some of us, Gina from Peeving, the way she was not that lucky. And she was very young, and she had her whole life ahead of her. Do not have any regrets. If you wanted to work for UNICEF, if you wanted to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, whatever it was. If you want to be on the TED Show, do it.
Listen, I can make that happen.
Do it, right? And just always, there's so much to life. Always have a purpose, always have something to look forward to, and you will be good to go.
You're a blessing. You are awesome. See, what were you worried about? Oh my God, you got right on the camera.
I think you just helped.
Well, I mean, you're a natural. It was awesome. Thank you for sharing what you did. I think it's so important. That message is so important. Yeah. All the things you talked about. John Wild, I see you watching. We're praying for you. He's in the hospital right now.
Sorry. I hope you get better soon.
We do.
Oh, I do have a blog that
Please, blog it. Put it out there.
During the time when I was studying, I was literally shut in for a year, just studying, and I had a lot of thoughts. It was driving me crazy. I started a blog called Tea and Ravelry, which was just to meet something like this. I just wanted someone to put on, like, I'll have music, and I want you to have a cup of tea, and I want you to just read my stories, because you can't keep these things in. You never know who will be inspired by it, whether you think it's unimportant or not. So I do have a blog. It's called Tea and Ravelry, and I have more of my story on it.
I love it. All right, so we're going to post all of that on when we share the video. Thank you so much for coming.
Ted.
You were awesome. See, nothing to be nervous about. We love you guys very much. Thank you for tuning in. We'll put all of Sanjana's information on when we post the show. Thanks.
Thank
again.
You so
Happy
much.
Friday.
Happy Friday,
Love
guys.
you guys.
Bye.
All right, so this is the part. See, I have to hit the finish button.